Alright. Walk right in front of the camera. Start. Alright, well, GR Posh, what is that, June? June meeting. Yeah, so today I'm going to talk about scanning for the EternalBlue vulnerability and doing it somewhat at scale. Was anyone affected by EternalBlue? Did it get anybody? No? I guess that's good. So for those of you that do not know what EternalBlue is, it is a vulnerability with SMB1, which is like a 20-year-old protocol now for SMB. It should be off in your environment. It really frustrates me that it's not off by default, even in a brand new install of Windows 10, even with the creators update. It's still on, the protocol's enabled, the feature's enabled. 2016, the feature is enabled when you install the file server role. So, why, I do not know why it's still enabled. There may be some legacy applications out there. I think I heard some older versions of some SANs out there, none that I can think of off the top of my head, but I think they can still use SMB1. I don't think it's required. But anyway, if I were you, I would scan your network for SMB1, and when you find it, definitely turn it off. So there's a few things that I found when this broke that I wanted to look for with SMB1. Namely, there's a protocol, there's a feature, and then there's a couple ports that are used. And Microsoft this was actually announced back when, when the NSA got breached or whatever and released all that hacking stuff, or I don't really know the ins and outs of that, but I know the vulnerability was actually disclosed during when that whole event happened. So Microsoft released a patch for it pretty quickly after that to fix this. And that was back in March, I believe. So surprisingly, it took them, 2-3 months to put together their malware for exploiting this. So there's quite a few patches that are out there that fix this, and now patching through Microsoft is just right now it's a headache. You got roll-ups, you got cumulative updates, you got security updates, whatever, quality of life update. I don't know. It's a huge pain to know what's really happening. So anyway, when all this broke, when it hit the news, so this was Mother's Day, actually Sunday, we wanted to know what systems could potentially be affected, and we wanted to know like right now. So in our environment we have, give or take 500 plus servers, 5,000 plus clients, spread across all around the world. We patch with SCCM. And I don't know if anyone does that, but it's trying to read its compliance reports it's a little flaky. I'm just going to say that. So I wanted some more concrete evidence of, I guess I wasn't so much worried about them going, hey, are you patched? And oh my God, you're not. But I wanted to be able to go, okay, these are the systems that were vulnerable. Let's look at these. And then also be, modular enough to down the road where I could continue to, I want SMB completely removed, or SMB1 completely removed from my network, obviously. So this is kind of how I tackled this. And the reason I'm kind of making this a talk is it got so much following. I was surprised. Like Lee Holmes actually tweeted out my script for finding the stuff for this. And I was like, oh man, I'm not worthy. So I was pretty blown away by that. But so anyway, let's take a look. So it's going to be a little bit about the function on the function that I put together for detecting the signs of SMB1, as well as using PowerShell Jobs to do it at scale. Because as I said, I had like 6,000 give or take machines. I want to know, and I want to do it multiple times. So as I remediate, I want to keep scanning and obviously until I'm at 0. So. Anyway, let's jump in a little bit. So, and as I said, I don't really have a presentation. These are actually all production files that I'm using, and they're all available out there. The actual script, this right here, this get EternalBlue vulnerability statistics is available on the PowerShell gallery. Let me give just a little bit on that. There's another one out there that's called Get WannaCry vulnerability, or sorry, Test WannaCry vulnerability, which is how this started. And the way I originally did it is I went, okay, unless you have one of the KB articles applied that fixes the bug, SMB1 is completely removed, both the feature and the protocol disabled. I said you were vulnerable because then I couldn't find any concrete proof to say which actually fixed the situation. So if it went, okay, you don't have the patch, but the SMB1 feature isn't installed, but the protocol's enabled, are you vulnerable? I couldn't find any proof to say, or any concrete evidence to say which is which on that. So I was just going, unless you met all three of that criteria, you're vulnerable. So I did it that way, and I was getting a lot of comments and a lot of feedback going, well, I don't get it. I've got this KB installed. Why am I vulnerable? And I'm like, I know, but you still have SMB1 enabled, so yeah, maybe you're not vulnerable for this one, but you could just as easily be vulnerable for the next one. So, and by PowerShell best practices, a test commandlet should always return a Boolean value, and I wasn't. I was returning a whole PS object of all the stuff this one will be returned. And I don't know, there's just too much confusion, and I finally went, you know what?
Mad about that too.
Yeah, I'm gonna call it something else, and I'm gonna feed you the data. You decide if you're vulnerable. If you wanna go, yeah, I have SMB1 enabled, but the protocol's disabled, but I have this patch, then I'm not vulnerable. That's your call. I didn't want to be the one responsible for making that decision. Hence birth this module. Sorry, this function. So this is called Get EternalBlue Vulnerability Statistics, and we'll just dive into the function just a little bit. Mainly just because I wanted to show some of the I guess modularity to it, the flexibility of it. I'm very big on trying to write commandlets to mimic any other commandlet that you use in any way you would think to do it. So pipeline support, error handling, or supporting all the common parameters, all that good stuff. So anyway, this does require the module nettcpip, which I believe exists in Windows 8 and 8.1 maybe and above. So Windows 7, you might have some issues running this. I'm not positive on that. And the reason that is required is because there's 2 ports that SMB uses. And this tests if those ports are accessible to that machine. This doesn't mean you're vulnerable at all, and other things could be using it, but it just returns in the object whether or not if those ports are accessible. So the way that I built this is you can either use 2 parameter sets. You can pass this a computer name, or you can pass it a sim session. And the way I wanted to do it with a sim session is because it's going to be making multiple WMI calls. And if you know anything about WMI calls, you cannot establish a session and do more than one thing. So when you say get WMI object, computer name, whatever, it's going to build a WMI session, it's going to run your query, return your results, tear that session down. So if I'm making 4 WMI calls across 4,000 machines, for each machine, that's a build connection, run your query, tear the connection down. Build your connection, run the query, tear the connection down. Not very efficient. With a sim session, you can establish the session, run as many queries as you want, remove the session. Now this is a little bit deceiving, because even if you give me a computer name, I'm still going to build a sim session in the background and do it anyway like that, because I'm not going to run that many queries in the background. So we're going to look at the basic structure of a function, which has your begin, process, and end block. The begin block is going to run before anything in the pipeline is passed to it. So in the begin block, all I'm going to do is declare from the few places I found on the internet the KB articles that contain a fix for this this exploit. That's all that's in the begin block. Just so when you pass it 3,000 computer names, it's not rebuilding this variable 3,000 times. So this is also one of the very first times I've ever written a nested function with inside a function. And all that nested function is doing is handling me passing the sim session to it and actually running the query. So we'll revisit that in just a second. So in the process block is what it's going to do is, if you're using the by computer name parameter set, is what it's going to do is it's first going to run this test WS man commandlet. And so what it's going to do is it's going to see if it can test or see if it can connect over WS-man. Oh man, excuse me. I need some. If it can't, is what it's going to do is it's going to fall back to decom, which is your typical what you're going to use when you do get WMI object. But you can run a sim session over either protocol. So all it's doing is testing is what protocol it can, the best it can use, and it will fall back to decom. After that is what it's going to do is build the parameters up for a sim session. And all this is handling is if you gave it a credential object to connect in something other than what you're currently running as, it handles that. Excuse me. After that, it builds a sim session, and then after that, it's going to do the get data function, is what I'm calling it. Now here's where the actual work happens. So what happens is it passes in the sim session, and it passes in the array of hotfixes IDs, and it's going to get a little bit of information. So rather than really going into all the logic of what it's doing, I'm going to show you a little, I'll show you my help output of what an object looks like. So when you say get EternalBlue vulnerability statistics on your local machine, this is what you're going to get back. It's going to give you the operating system caption. The main reason I'm giving you the caption and the version is because supposedly anything with the creators update, this patch was already applied. So you weren't vulnerable anyway. So later down the road, you can export to a CSV and go, well, anything that had the creators update, you're good. And the reason you might want to do that is because all that list of KBs are probably not applicable to that version of Windows. So you could be in this weird, anyway, my goal is to give you all the data, you decide if you're vulnerable. So a couple little other good things, last boot time, so you can say, oh yeah, look at it, has all these applied hotfixes, but it also hasn't rebooted in like 7 months. So yeah, it has them, but they're not actually applied, right? It's going to look at if the SMB1 feature is enabled, if the SMB1 protocol is enabled, and then here's those two ports. Port 139 and port 445. So starting with Windows 8, SMB1 became a feature. And SMB are in Windows 7 and so whatever that would be, Server 2002, SMB1 is just in the SMB stack. So all you can do on that is disable the protocol. It's a registry key. So if you look in the actual get data function, you can actually see where that's at. Yeah, I found all sorts of cool stuff. Like if you ever queried the registry via CIM, you can actually do that. So like this SMB1 protocol data right here. So you can say, right here, this hdef key is whatever H key, local machine. Here's the sub key name, and it's actually a method you're invoking on this standard registry provider WMI class. And that's pretty cool because it allows me to not have to do like get item and pass in a registry path to it still allows all that call to happen on the same SIM object. So, because I mean, I'm doing, I think 4 calls. So yeah, you're going to get the operating system data, which is the caption and the version. You're going to do get hotfix data, which is getting all the applied KBs to it. Get if the feature's enabled, getting this registry key value. The only ones that are happening outside of the context of that sim session are the test if the port is available. So anyway, that was pretty cool trying to figure out how to query the registry via a sim object. Anyway, and then it's going to return back this this big object. So anyway, that's kind of the basis of the function. The only difference between if you're given it a sim session and a computer name, like I said, is it's going to build a sim session for you. It doesn't do anything over WMI. So with that being said, let's break into PowerShell Jobs. Has anyone ever used PowerShell Jobs? Mike has used PowerShell Jobs. Okay. So PowerShell Jobs are very, very, very new to me as of with this project. I've never used them prior before. I've written lots of things to scour networks and scour Active Directory and scour many computers, but I've always done it, if you will, single-threaded. I've always done it for each computer and computers. You know, do this. The most I got out of that was I wrote a workflow once, which I think is limited to like 10 threads at most. And a workflow works exactly like a function. You write it the same way, but you can say for each, and then there's a keyword you can say parallel. So it's going to multi-thread that, but I think by default it's threaded. Like you can't parallel 100 threads. I have done that. I have written that, and it did what I needed it to do then, but now that I've used jobs, they're way better. And there's a few wrappers out there that make better. Some people say that they're archaic. I don't know. I'm not a programmer, so I'm not real big on like multi-threading and like how to properly handle it and whatever performance this, performance that. So for me, the ability to be able to scan like 25 systems simultaneously was good enough for me. So we're not going to actually run this here. This was more just an example to show you, and I'm going to use quotes here, single-threaded. I don't really know if PowerShell Jobs is considered multi-threading. Is it? Yeah?
I believe so.
Yeah? Okay. So, yeah, so I'm going to call this single-threaded. So in this little example here, we're basically going to just use this little code block here to build a collection of computers, right? So you're saying, I want any AD computer that's operating system is not a server, but is like Windows, so basically i.e. a client, a workstation, and whose password last set is greater than I did 180 days. And then you're just basically building a collection of the names of those, right? And then, so single-threaded would be for each computer in computers, right? So you're going to sequentially go through that list and execute the function we just looked at, right? And that's like it. So you have to wait for every one of these to be done. So yeah, you got 5,000 some computers. I would say on average, this little commandlet function, whatever you want to call it, I'd say it takes maybe 20 seconds to run. So I mean, do the math on that. Like you're talking a day at least. You know what I mean? That's just it's not even remotely feasible. So yeah, I was talking to Joe, who I work with. He told me he's going to be here today. Anyway, he told me about PowerShell Jobs and how he uses these all the time. And he's like explaining it to me, and I'm like, oh, it sounds so difficult. You have to start this job, and then you have to do like a get job and see if the job's still running, because it's basically running it outside of the scope. So you don't really you have to do a get job to get the handle of it, so you can look at it and then go, are you running? And then if you're not, then you have to do receive job to get your data back. And I'm like, this just sounds like way too much. I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, I don't want to be running 4,000 jobs at the same time. And okay, looking at them, are they done? If not, or if they are, give me the data. If not, keep looking. Like you're talking while loops and do's and untils, and it just sounded like way too much work. But it's really not. I was actually surprisingly impressed with how easy this was. So this is, hang on, just because this isn't going to work when I actually run this. Because it's in that folder now. Okay, so this is straight up my production script that I'm using at work on a daily basis right now. And I've been using it and slowly tapering down. So I'll kind of show you what I mean. So still going to use our same collection script to basically, I want to know every computer in my Active Directory environment that is not a server, that has reset its password in the last 180 days, so I can halfway tell what's active. And I want to scan those. I want to run this other commandlet that we talked about against them. So the first thing I'm going to do is jobs, from what my understanding is, do not persist sessions. So you don't have to worry about, well, the first thing I want to do is that there's not any existing jobs, because I want to know how many are running, what they are. I want to be looking at them. So the very first thing I do is get job, remove job. In case I'm already running something, whatever, the counts matter. So you don't have to worry about running this, and like if you had some other script running doing jobs, it doesn't matter. The job, like your PowerShell session right here is the parent. So you can only see what's nested out of this, so to speak. So if you had some script running, executing jobs left and right, you don't have to worry about this killing those jobs. So after that, this throttle would be your threading threshold. How many concurrent threads do you want to run at the same exact time? So I'm going to limit this to 25. Find a little beefier machine, be all right. I did run this all the way up to 50 threads, and it does run, but my computer is pretty much taxed. This timeout is in minutes. So this is how long it's going to wait for a job to complete. So if this is for some reason running a job on a machine and it's taking a half hour. I don't want that to hose this whole script up. If it's longer than 10 minutes, then just kill the job. So it's just a threshold that we'll look at a little later on. These are literally just placeholders for this while loop, and they're needed for the throttle. So that way I can, because otherwise if I took that out and literally ran this, it's gonna start a job for every single computer in there, and it's gonna try to run 4,000 jobs at the same exact time. And I don't want it to do that. So that's all that is. So a lot of this script is progress bars, just simply so I can tell what's going on. So what it's gonna do is it's gonna, based on the throttle, it's going to basically fire off from the computer, the count of computers, and it's going to run 25 jobs right now. And then it's going to keep looping through this as fast as it can. Once a job is completed, it's going to launch another one behind it, and it will keep its current running jobs at 25 all the way until it's done. Now, after that's done, we need to wait for the remaining jobs to keep running. So it's going to keep looking, and all it's going to keep doing is get job. And it's going to keep looking and looking and looking, and then right here I put, if the running job begin time is past that 10-minute threshold, then I'm done waiting. Because I don't know, I had a few computers that would just, I'd be waiting like 2 jobs and be sitting there for like a half hour. And I'm like, all right, this is ridiculous. So that's what that part's doing. And then after that, it's just going to go ahead and look at all of the jobs that are done now, because it's weighted up here for all of the jobs that were running to be done. So that means either a job is completed or a job has failed. Now the fail part's important. So in my function, I spent a lot of work on try catches. And basically if you can't complete this all the way through, it throws an error. I.e. it couldn't connect to the computer, it couldn't query anything in WMI, access denied, whatever. It needs to throw that error, because in our actual loop here, in the script block that's running in this start job, it's going to do a try catch. And the catch part is important, because when it catches it, it's going to catch the error returned from that function, and that function is going to, and then it's going to mark that job as failed. So then I can easily look at these jobs and go, okay, I can look at all the ones that completed. Well, all the ones that have failed, I need to rerun this scan on. I.e. the computer wasn't on, like I was saying, I mean, maybe WMI is just corrupt, because I mean, even though it's SIM over it, it's probably still running WMI on the other side. But either way, I want to know the computers that it failed to actually scan. So yeah, so what it's going to do then is it's going to just get all of the jobs, and it's going to switch through the state of the job. So if it's completed, basically I want you to, this part does seem silly. It might not be something you actually have to do. But what it's doing is rebuilding the same exact object that's actually being returned back to it. So I don't know, I could be missing something, because you're getting a job object, and yeah, I don't know, maybe I'm missing something inside there of like the object that the script block executed. Like, I mean, if it can return an error, can it return the object back? So this part to me feels redundant right here, because I'm literally building the same exact thing that's coming out right here. So this is my return object from the function. So I don't know, maybe I'm missing something in jobs there.
Yeah.
I
believe it should, when you call receive job, it should.
Yeah, and maybe it's like nested in there, but see, like I still had to I don't know. Oh, I remember why I did it. Because there's like 3 properties that are appended to it. You get like a run space ID, you get the host executing the job. I don't know, and select doesn't work on it. I couldn't say just select the properties I want. They were like, it's some weird custom, it's some other PS custom object that's being in there, and if you guys have ever messed with those, like some of the rules of PowerShell just don't apply to those objects. I don't know, but yeah, so I couldn't select the properties I want, so it was getting all this other data that was, anyway, that's why I did that. So after it builds its object, it's going to export it to a CSV and give me all that good data. If the job status was failed, then here's the cool part. I really like this. Like someone posted in the GitHub gist that I put, like, well, how can I tell what failed? And I'm like, well, if you do a try catch in there, the error should be coming back. You should be able to just catch the error and do whatever you want. Well, because the job, it holds an error, you can literally just say receive job, error action silent continue, and then all of your error output is literally in the built-in error variable. So I thought that was pretty slick. Like the receive job like pops that error to the top of the error stack. So I don't even have to I don't even have to look at it. It's just there. It's just the latest index and error. So I thought that was pretty cool. Yeah, he put that on there, and I'm like, well, let me see if I can figure it out. And I was like, well, I did receive job, and then it showed an error, and I'm like, oh, what if that's just on the error stack? And I'm like, sweet. So make sure you do silently continue, because otherwise you're going to get the error actually outputted on the screen, which is not necessarily what you want in this situation. So, and then I just do the same thing. I export CSV to failures. And that's it. I mean, 74 lines of code, and I mean, I bet you a third of that is like friendly output to the screen of write outputs and show me how many computers you're scanning, and you can scan your entire environment all you want. So, I don't know how fast this will actually be via I'm over direct access. So nothing in here is currently. Let's just try this a little bit once. Let's select the first 10 computers in my Active Directory environment. Let's see what happens. I don't know if this will work over direct access, because DNS will have to be, we'll see. I got all failures. Am I not in the right? Hang on. Get EternalBlue. I feel like my this has got to be spelled wrong or something. I was saying I couldn't find that. I feel like it's the same thing. Of course, yeah.
You might have to give it the full path.
It seems strange to me. You'd have to.
In a new thread, it might. Your current directory might be different.
Usually I run this from my VM. I do all my development on my VM, so usually I have my path to my VM that's running on here, but I know over direct access. So actually, now that I fix the IP address, hang on. Yeah. Let me just make sure I get that right. Yeah, no, I did do 1.2 right. Oh wait, it's 169.254.1.2. Yeah, see, I don't know why that direct access just screws everything up.
Ping v4 wouldn't work over. You can't ping IPv4 over direct access.
No?
No, it has to go through DNS and get translated through DNS 64 into a v6 address. If you know the name of that, it'll work. If you know a host name that DNS will look up and you ping the host name, it should work.
Yeah, I keep a host file entry on my computer because it's on a private network, so there's no reason for that traffic to ever leave.
Yeah. It has to go through a DNS 64 translation for.
I really don't feel like doing all of mine. It's like, wait, oh,
That should work.
can I just do this? Of course, I pick the longest directory name. You see, it's like when I put the path in it, then it gets really mad about
Hey Tom, quick question.
Oh, put a dot in front of
yeah,
it.
good call. I just seen that too. Yeah, go ahead, Keith.
So when you do that, what you're doing, okay, so you're concatenating jobs,
Mm-hmm.
and then you're starting those jobs so it keeps a handle of each job.
Well, that's actually building this array just so it can keep a count of how many jobs are currently running.
Yeah,
So that's just so this throttle will work.
but can't you pass start job in array itself? I thought I could be wrong, but I thought that was a parameter.
I don't. I guess I'm not following you.
I thought the purpose of a job was to run multiple things at once. I didn't think you had to
Yeah.
actually throttle
You
yourself.
don't. But my point being is if I took this select first 10 out of here,
Yeah.
it's going to pull back about 3,800 applicable computers, and it will run all those jobs at once.
Oh, really?
And my computer will become useless.
Okay.
So if you have the server to run that from, to run that many jobs at once, feel free. It's just this is to still stay usable. All right, let's see if that works with a full path now. Oh, I forgot to delete that. No, at least it's actually running this time. So, like I said, I do not know how fast this will actually be over direct access. This could take ages. But this is a little bit of the output that you can see, you know what I mean, the right progress, just so I can keep track. And the failures come back good. I mean, it'll tell you unable to reach host computer, or I've gotten some that say like unexpected WMI error, or, you know, whatever. It does work very well. So there's a lot of commandlets out there that contain the asJob switch as well. I think even like get WMI object has an asJob parameter. So it'll just spit a job out, and you have to do get job, and then you have to figure out the logic to go and find that job, and then you receive the job. And then one other little caveat to remember is once you receive a job, the object is gone. Like you can't receive it. You have to use like a keep switch. You can say, no, once this is done, we'll type it out. You can say like receive job space, you know, job name space dash. I think it's keep. Otherwise, you can't receive it again. The output that's held in that object is gone. The job ID will still exist. So if you do get job, it'll still be there, but you'll be frustrated when you try to do receive job again.
There won't be any hand.
Right. And I don't think when you say like asJob with the commandlets that support it, I don't think you can give it like a name. So like when I'm right here, I'm doing this start job, and I kind of like that because you get a lot more flexibility over the job. So like I can actually say the name, and that name is the name of the job. So I'm literally naming the job the computer name. So that way you can go back and look at your jobs, and you know if something's hosed or whatever, you can break out of the cycle and say get job, and I can look and go, why is this one still running? And I can see the computer name it's running on. You know, you don't. I think some commandlets do support that much flexibility, but definitely not all of them. All right, let's see if we got. So I do not have Excel installed on this right now, so we can do. Oh wait, hang on. We can get to it from my VM. Stand by. I can go from VM to my host, just not the other way. So we can actually look at it in Excel. Even though it didn't Excel, open in Excel. Awesome. I know I have Excel in here. Anyway, so this is what CSV looks like. So you can see, you know, this machine, Windows 7, you know, its version. This is its last boot up time, so it's rebooted in the past couple weeks. It has these, you know, knowledge base articles. Its SMB1 feature is not enabled. Its SMB protocol is still enabled. Shouldn't be. And these two features are, these two ports are still enabled. So that's kind of how, you know, that's kind of the gist of how it works. So if we did some more, like we can do, like so if we change this to get the first 100, you can kind of see it in action as far as, so say it's running throttled to 25 concurrent jobs. So it's sitting there now. And it's going to keep looking, or it's basically re-getting jobs every, you know what I mean, as quick as it can. And it's looking, and as soon as the one's gone, it's going to fire up another one behind it. So that's kind of the gist of how jobs work, from my understanding. So, if any of you guys want to use any of this stuff, like I said, you can definitely hit. Oh, I see what's going on here. Even though I was like opening that, like I wasn't actually opening it. I was on the wrong start menu. Yeah, that makes more sense. Okay, so if you go to GitHub and go check out There's the WannaCry vulnerability. If I actually click it, maybe don't think about opening. So this is the code we were literally just looking at. It's the same exact one. I keep it up to date. You can kind of read other people's issues they're having with it, most of which people don't understand when you do save script from the PowerShell gallery that it doesn't actually install it, so they don't understand the path of where that file is. So that's about 95% of these comments.
Doesn't it say right in the PS gallery to install? Doesn't it have the?
You can install it or you can save it. If you install it, all it's doing is putting it either in your user profile or in the program files, but it also adds the full path of that to your environment variable, and that's why you can tab complete it. That's the only reason. So, and that scares a lot of people. A lot of people don't like their environment variable being messed with, so they won't do install. So when they do save, it's wherever they save it. And in my example, I tried to express where it is with just .get EternalBlue, you know what I mean? And they're showing this error like, well, I can't find this command that's not recognized. I'm like, you're not in the path to it. It's literally the same thing we just seen here when I was trying to source it. So, and then what was the other part? And the script is available on the PowerShell gallery by that name. So you can do get script, whatever it is, get EternalBlue vulnerability statistics. So I left the other one on here, this test WannaCry. You're more than welcome to use that as well, but I'm not updating that one, so it doesn't have the latest KB articles to it, and I don't know, people still keep downloading it. The download count keeps going up, but this is on there. So those are the only two files you need. So let's take a look at that now that that just finished. Oops. So yeah, there's a little nicer view. So I mean, just while we were talking right there, just scanned 100 systems. Now, granted, a lot of machines are probably off. So yeah, we only got 29 back. So if the failures are probably So look at you see failed to contact blah 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 blah. So now the reason I do it that way is, like I was saying, I am slowly narrowing these down. So rather than running a full scan of my environment every day, every morning I come in, and what I do is I have this part a little bit different, where rather than getting in from AD, is what it does is it gets all the computers from the failures CSV, and then gets all the computers from the other one that have an operating system version less than the creators update. And then scans again, spits out 2 new ones. And then so each day, my overall list of what I'm scanning is getting smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. And then what it does is it actually updates a collection in Config Manager that has a mandatory deployment for those updates right now as soon as you get your policy refresh. So, and then it pulls the other ones back out, so I can keep an accurate count of how many computers I've actually talked to that are vulnerable that have not updated. So, and we are like 99.8% right now. So, mainly just waiting on computers that are probably in someone's closet, someone's backpack, you know what I mean, that for some reason it talked to it 2 weeks ago, but hasn't talked to it since. So, anyway, that's the gist.
Cool. Nice. What was that wrench key for disabling the protocol? Because that's like your bare minimum, right? If you do that, even if you don't have the patch.
I don't know, that's what I'm saying. Right? That's what I'm saying. I couldn't find anybody saying, like, and if you read Microsoft's articles, like, they tell you 7 and R2 below, yeah, remove this or add this registry key. And I'm like, okay, but anything above, they say remove the feature. And I'm like, well, I can't really remove the feature via GPO, you know what I mean? I can't really do that. So I'm like, is the registry key good enough? Can I just deploy that everywhere and say, yeah?
That's what I did. Now I'm starting to question that.
That's what I mean. I couldn't find it. And then it's like, all right, well, is the KB...
And then I patched everything, too, which most of it already was.
Right. So that's like I said, with all this stuff it stirred up, I just went, all right, here's the ports, here's the feature, here's the key, here's the patches, you decide.
Somebody's got to get Metasploit out or something, I figured. actually try to run the vulnerability.
Right. So it is HKLM, system, current control set, services, landman server parameters, and then there's a value in there called SMB1. 0 is off, and 1 is on.
That's what I do too.
And see, the hardest part about that though too is once you have the feature, that key doesn't even exist.
Once you remove the feature?
No, it's not there, period. It doesn't matter. Like right now, like if you just like took a brand new installed Windows 10 and went look for this key, it's not there.
Right. Wait,
So-
was there previous
Huh?
versions? It was there on previous versions? I thought you had to create it.
I don't remember now.
Okay.
But that's what I mean. So, and you can remove the feature in Windows, like in Windows 10, you can say remove Windows
They're
optional
supposedly
feature.
not vulnerable in the first place on 10.
No, creators update.
Okay.
So that's what I mean though. You can go and you can say remove Windows optional feature and it's like fs-smb1, right? That key is still not there, even when doing that. So I don't have a good way to test. You know what I mean? Like I can't go, oh, it's not there. You're not vulnerable because you're 10, but maybe the feature's still on. So, but the feature's off, but does that mean the protocol's still enabled? Because you don't have the key explicitly disabling the protocol. So also in 10 and 2016 and I think 2012 R2, there's also it's set SMB by server. Yeah, set SMB server configuration and it's like SMB1. I can't remember what it is.
That's how I was verifying that it had taken place doing
But
get
this
SMB.
this only exists in later versions of Windows. Oh, there it is. Enable SMB1 protocol.
Okay.
So yeah, you can say get. Sorry, maybe it's just SMB1 protocol. I don't remember what it is. Well, here
Maybe
we'll
you
just
just
do
did the
this.
whole thing. Yeah. Enable SMB1 protocol false, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So, but that's what I mean. That's only a later version of Windows, and that does not put the registry key there. Like if you say set, or if you say set SMB1 protocol, whatever, that it does not put. Or no, sorry, it does put that key there, but removing the feature doesn't. That's what I mean. So which one is the right
because
one?
that one you're disabling the protocol in one version, the other one you're removing the feature altogether.
That's what. Yeah.
So you don't even need the registry key. In
Right.
theory.
Right. So to me, I'm going to go if the registry key is not there, or if it equals 1, it's enabled. Your protocol is enabled. The only way it's, I'm doing like an explicit deny in my head. Unless it's set to 1, so in my eyes, you need to be patched, SMB1 feature needs to be removed, and protocol needs to be disabled. I was doing the most aggressive approach, and that's the way the test WannaCry function was, and it was just confusing too many people, and I got sick of explaining it.
How do you remove the feature in a mass way?
It's a great question. It's your choice.
Okay.
You could do a logon script. You could do SCCM. I mean, you would just do it's on server. It's remove Windows feature. It's fs-smb1, and then you would say probably it's like no restart. I don't know. It's so silly. There's 2 different sets of commandlets for workstation class OSs and server OSs. So the workstation one would be like disable Windows optional feature -online -feature name, and it's different. It's not the. Actually, I have it in here because that's what I'm looking for with CIM. Where are we at here? So hotfixes feature, here it is. So it's optional feature SMB1 protocol. So with the Windows 10 box, it would be remove Windows optional feature -online -feature name SMB1 protocol. But then theirs is the opposite. Theirs is like no restart. -no restart rather than restart : false. It's just, I don't know why. And if you try running the other one on your Windows 10 box, it'll say, this command is not applicable to workstation class OS. It's like, why though?
Well, why? Okay.
So,
Good to know. I didn't think of removing the features, so that's good to know.
yeah, I don't know. Maybe disabling the protocol is good enough. I couldn't find any
Mine-
concrete.
yeah.
I mean, on Windows 7, you don't
That's
even have, there is no
easier.
feature.
Yeah.
So,
curious, has Windows said there's any reason that they've kept that at all?
No, and I don't know why it's on by default. Like,
SMB1.
that seems like something you would go turn on in some legacy application if you needed it. I mean, SMB3 is out there.
Right.
So
I think it's because legacy hardware out there, like NAS devices and stuff.
yeah, but it's like .NET 3.5. It's not on by default. You can go turn it on. I mean, how many legacy things use that? I'm sure a lot more than SMB1.
Yeah.
So it's crazy to
I
me
think
that
it's
it's
because it's a
on.
remote network device. Like, would it just detect, like, oh yeah, you need this feature kind of thing? A client feature. Like, say your machine tries to reach out to a server that's vulnerable running this
Right.
one.
Well, that's my other question on that. So if I disable and remove the feature on all of my servers of
Do I need
SMB1,
to
like,
remove the client feature too?
yeah, like how, I mean,
Because I saw a blog post out there about how to disable the client being able to even talk to SMB1. Because like your client could still theoretically connect to an SMB1 share, even with this it turned off everywhere. If it could, you could find a server still running it. You could theoretically connect, but there's a way to break it in your client OS so it can't even try.
well,
But
I think that would be disabling the protocol because it wouldn't be able to use the
but
protocol.
Disabling the protocol is for the server service, the SMB server.
Okay,
But
yeah.
there's also an
I see what
SMB
you're
client.
saying.
There's two halves to this thing.
Yeah, I see.
I
what
didn't
you're saying.
go as far as removing the client because I was like, I don't think there's a vulnerability.
Yeah, so
there.
really all this would be doing would be detecting the server-side vulnerability.
Yeah.
Nothing with the client.
I don't think there is a client vulnerability that I know of. It just seems like, why are we still using this? That's,
Yeah, that's definitely the bigger,
Yeah.
question. So,
Cool.
cool. Any other questions?
Just working next week.
Kill the video.